Coming in at number 10, we have William Shakespeare's grave. Billy Bob Shakespeare is one of my favourite historical figures of all time for many reasons, but mainly because I loved his drama. William Shakespeare died in 1616 and wrote 39 plays, 154 sonnets, and 2 long narrative poems. My favourite Shakespeare play is probably The Winter's Tale. It's a classic problem play and I really enjoy it, but I also do love Macbeth as a close second. So as we know, the famous English writer had a flair for drama and a great sense of humour. With that in mind, of course he decided to place a curse on his grave. He's buried at the Holy Trinity Church in his home of Stratford-upon-Avon. On his grave he wrote, "Good friends, for love's sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be man spares these stones, and cursed be he who moves my bones." Good on you, Bill. You don't want anyone messing with your bones, I feel you. When the church was restored in 2008, care was taken to keep his bones safe. I might just curse my own grave so that I don't end up getting thrown out in the trash. Good thinking.
The message on Betty Stivan's tombstone has confused residents for years. What does it mean? So the inscription reads, "Within these walls are deposited the bodies of Miss Betty Stivan and her child. She was the beloved wife of Alex B. Stivan. To the end of his days will deplore her death, which happened upon the 25th day of November 1783 in the 23rd year of her age. What was remarkable of her, she was a mother without knowing it, and a wife without letting her husband know it, except by her kind indulgences to him." So people are like, how is she a mother without knowing it? I mean, if you're pregnant, you know. But this is open to interpretation. One theory is that Betty was a slave and Alex Stivan was her owner. Apparently she got ill and slipped into a coma for quite some time. During that time, he impregnated her and she gave birth to a child, who Alex gave away to other slaves to raise, which is just hella messed up. Another theory is that the engravers didn't mean the statement literally, and she was just a mother figure to all and acted like a wife to others because of how much she cared for them. Either way, people like to speculate, and we'll never truly know what this means. In our 8th spot today we have the library paste. This next gravestone is pretty weird, I'm not gonna lie. It says, "Unknown man died eating library paste July 14th, 1908. It's also not a proper tombstone, so like what's going on here? Well, let's look at the supposed backstory. Legend goes that in 1908 a man was wandering the streets of Goldfield looking for something to eat. He was rummaging through the trash outside of a library where he came across a jar of book paste. Being desperate, he decided to eat it. But that substance is very deadly, so it would have killed him, as the tombstone says. The people of the town eventually found him and decided to make a little makeshift grave for him. But here's the mysterious part. For being more than a century old, the red paint on the grave is very bright. By then, it should have been faded and chipping. So was the story made up? Or do people return to his gravesite every so often to repaint the words so that no one forgets his story? Others believe it's just a local prank. Again, who really knows? In our 7th spot today we had the baby monster. This next tombstone reads, "Baby monster, born October 23rd, 1888, died February 3rd, 1888 or 1889, it's hard to tell with its age. Either way, the mystery is, why doesn't this tomb have the child's name on it? One theory is that the kid was born with some sort of deformity. Back in the day, the word monster was used to describe someone or something that was out of the ordinary. So if the baby did have a birth defect, they sadly might have been called a monster, which is seriously messed up. Or maybe the baby was just never given a name. Honestly, we don't know. Either way, it's super sad and mysterious. In our 6th spot today, we have the werewolf. Are werewolves real? Or something we just feared from fairy tales? Well, this tombstone suggests that the deceased Catherine Cross was killed by human wolves. Human wolves? Could that mean werewolves? One theory is that Catherine was actually killed after an abortion gone wrong. They were extremely illegal at the time and also very dangerous. So human wolves would be a reference to the doctors that took her and her baby's life. What makes things even more mysterious is that in 2016, someone stole her headstone. We don't know why someone would do this or where they even put it. As of today, the headstone hasn't been replaced and is still missing. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the turning head angel statue. Now this statue is creepy and mysterious for a couple of reasons. The main one being apparently it frickin' moves. You heard me. Apparently on a number of occasions people have seen the statue's head turn and just look at them. So the story goes that on March 14th, 1908, a gas explosion took place in a drug company, and as a result, 5 female workers lost their lives. This statue was placed at their gravesite, which was marked by only their last names. Of course, having a big angel like that in the cemetery attracted a lot of attention. People who have visited the grave have claimed to see the statue's head move. However, it's said that it mainly turns its head to look at cars driving by, and a number of drivers have claimed to have seen this. So what's up? That's hella creepy. Some say it's the angel watching over the girls' graves, which is sweet, not that creepy anymore. In our 4th spot, we have the Victim of the Beast. Located in Salt Lake City Cemetery is a really terrifying gravestone for a woman named Lily E. Gray. The gravestone reads, Victim of the Beast 666. So immediately you're probably thinking what I'm thinking. Was this woman in contact with the devil? Did Satan himself kill her? Well, her obituary says that she died of natural causes. Well, there are 3 main theories out there. One is that Lily passed away in a car crash on Highway 666 through Utah. A lot of fatal accidents have taken place on that highway, and people believe that the devil has a play in that. Theory 2 is that Lily was a follower of Aleister Crowley. He often referred to himself as the Beast 666, so maybe he had some sort of play in her death. And the last theory is that her husband had that inscribed on her tomb. Her husband Elmer apparently had a criminal record and was all like, F the government. So maybe he blamed the government for Lily's death and was referring to the government as the Beast 666. But again, who knows? Moving on to number 3, we have the tomb of XYZ. Or Z. I don't know. Now here's another mysterious tombstone that is associated with an urban legend. So legend goes that one night a group of 4 robbers decided they were going to rob the Deep River Savings Bank, but the lead man ended up getting shot after trying to open one of the bank's windows. He died and no one in the town identified him, so the town just buried him in a remote area. Shortly after the burial, a letter was sent asking for the grave to be marked only with the letters XYZ. No one knew who wrote the letter, but they claimed it was written by a female. Over the time, the mystery grew. Every year, people have said that they've seen a woman in black visit this mysterious grave. She would drop a small flower and then leave. People have seen this woman for 40 continuous years. Now, this is just a legend. We don't know if the backstory is even real. The mystery is, who is this guy? Who is this woman, if the story is real, and what's the significance behind XYZ? In our 2nd spot, we have the tomb underneath the porch. Just this year, a man in Toronto, Michael Killinger, was doing work on his property when he found a mysterious gravestone under his porch. The stone is hard to read, but he believes it says, in memory of Isabella Hislop, or Bishop, wife of Abnigo Hardwell or Bardwell, died November 24th, 1858. Now, the home's previous owner lived there for 40 years before him, but the gravestone has no connection to him. So Michael is determined to find out how the stone got there and who it belongs to. He believes that the stone might have come from a brickyard or garbage dump by accident, or whoever lived at the house previously had Isabella's tombstone replaced. I mean, there was a big crack in this one, so maybe they replaced it and they took the old stone back with them and left it underneath the porch. But honestly, we can't be too sure. Michael has currently put the tombstone up on Craigslist. Don't worry, he's not selling it. He's just trying to find out more about Isabella and her stone. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Specimen. Located in a graveyard at the Ohio Asylum for the Insane is a really freaking scary tombstone that just reads specimens. In fact, there are 2 tombstones that read this. And the fact that this is in an insane asylum cemetery makes it way creepier. Like, what is buried there? People that were being experimented on? Animals that were being experimented on? Body parts? Nobody knows, but of course there are so many theories. Not only that, but the asylum has a reputation for being haunted and for conducting unethical experiments on patients. Like back in the day, they did lobotomies there, as well as hydrotherapy and electric shock therapy, as well as drug experiments, which is what has led people to believe that everyone who died during these tests are buried in this single grave labeled as specimens.
Coming into number 10, we have this creepy angel skeleton. Also, it's alongside a really creepy hard-hitting message. Okay, I personally don't know what is creepier, this terrifying as F statue of basically a winged skeleton kissing the face of a stone corpse, or the inscription. The inscription reads, "The blood in his veins grows cold and all strength is gone. Faith has been extolled by his fall into the arms of death. Amen." I understand that for some people death isn't a jovial occasion, but can we maybe just chill out a little bit? This sobering statue can be found at Barcelona's Poblenou Cemetery, where I don't feel like I'm going to be taking a trip anytime soon. No thanks. Scary and really. Coming in at number 9, we have the Shugborough inscription. The thing is about this tomb message is that we have no idea what it says. The Shugborough monument can be found in the grounds of Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire in England. The monument depicts the shepherds of Arcadia, in which shepherds stand around a tomb. Now the monument contains a very cryptic message that reads OUOSVAVV, and this is framed by the letters D and M. A lot of people that think that this is a code, and the monument is regularly hailed as one of the world's top unsolved ciphers. Adding to the mystery, fingers of the stone's figurines touch the letters N and R on the phase et in Arcadia EGO. So what does this mean? Some of the world's top minds, Charles Darwin and Charles Dickens included, have actually failed to solve the text. Coming in at number 8, we have the cursed tablets. In 2003, 4 cursed tablets were found in the grave of a young woman who died around 2,400 years ago in Greece. Brilliant. Back in the day, it seems that cursed tablets were very popular, and people would inscribe curses on metal and offer them to the gods. Burying tablets with the dead was believed to give the tablets direct access to the gods, who would then decide to do the curse's bidding. The curses were aimed at then local innkeepers Demetrios and Fangoria. One of the curses found in the grave read, "Cast your hate upon Fangora and Demetrios and their tavern and their property and their possessions. I will bind my enemy in blood and ashes with all the dead." Blimey. Another one of the curses found in the grave wished a dog ear curse upon them. Of course. From dog curses to donkey curses up at number 7. The Egyptians, as we know, were a scary bunch when it came to protecting their final resting places. Well, it seems that a donkey curse was famously found on the tomb of Der El Bari Graffito. The donkey curse invoked the god Seth, a donkey who would rape those who violated the tomb. We hear a lot about how the curse of King Tut came true, but we have no idea if the curse here came true because nobody wants to admit that they got harassed by a donkey, do they? Coming in at number 6, we have Amenhotep's shopping list. The ancient Egyptians were so dramatic, including Amenhotep, son of Hapu, who died in 1300 BC. In life, he was a priest and a scribe, and a lover of melodrama, I bet. He inscribed one of the more inventive curses that I've ever read on the doors of his final resting place. This curse actually kind of made me laugh. It reads like a shopping list of plague and pestilence. He wrote, "He who enters this tomb will lose their earthly possessions and honours, be incinerated in a furnace, in excretion of rites, capsize, drown at sea, have no successors, receive no tomb or funerary offerings of their own, and their bodies would decay because they will starve and have no sustenance, and their bones will perish." Good! Great! You get a car. No, you get a car. No, you get a car. Plagues, plagues everywhere. Coming in at number 5, we have this warning. I can't think of anything scarier than going to visit the tombstone of a loved one and finding these tasteless warning signs. Councillors in Plymouth in England placed garish yellow warning signs on the graves that they had deemed unsafe or hazardous. Basically, they were worried that they were going to topple over at some point. I'm all about preventing some danger, but honestly, bright yellow signs that cover the name of the person buried, for me it's a bit of an eyesore. Mourner Paul Ford found his grandparents' grave had one of the signs on and spoke out about how disrespectful it was, and how the message could have been at the back of the grave. True. Coming in at number 4, we have spooky old Midnight Mary. It seems that a very scary message can be found on a grave at the Evergreen Cemetery in New Haven. The inscription is actually a very ghostly warning. The grave belongs to Mary E. Hart, who died under strange circumstances in 1872. Around the top of her grave reads, "The people shall be troubled at midnight and pass away." It seems that Mary was considered somewhat of a witch in her era, and some even say that she haunts the New Haven graveyard to this day, taking souls to the underworld with her if they're by her grave at the stroke of midnight. Of course, these are probably just urban legends made up to match her spooky gravestone, although I still wouldn't want to be around at midnight just in case. You were waiting for him, here he is. Coming in at number 3 we have King Tut's Terror. Do not disturb an ancient Egyptian tomb. Message received loud and clear, although it only took the deaths of 6 people for us to realise. Now a lot of you will be familiar with the curse of the pharaohs and what happened with Tutankhamun's grave, so I will just recap really quickly. In 1922, Egyptologist Lord Carnarvon and archaeologist Howard Carter were the first to enter King Tut's tomb. Carnarvon died from a mosquito bite to the cheek shortly after the tomb was open. A similar mark was also found on the king. George J. Gold, Audrey Hepburn, Hugh Evelyn White, Aaron Ember and Archibald Douglas Reed also died shortly after coming into contact with the tomb or someone who had entered. It seems that outside the burial chamber was an inscription that read, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." Also found in the tomb was a warning on a bracelet that read, "Cursed be he who moves my body, to him shall come fire, water and pestilence." Now the man on the receiving end of this bracelet actually did have his house burned down, then when it was rebuilt it was hit by a flood. Interesting. Coming in at number 2 we have a curse upon the bullies. Well, Mary of Wallingport, Massachusetts certainly got the last word, didn't she? It seems that Mary C. Delancey was a nuisance in her community. She believed her neighbours were up to no good and she would shine lights into their properties. She owned a lot of cats and would spend hours feeding pigeons, which is kinda sweet, but it also seems like she was quite the recluse. She felt her neighbours bullied her and she was unwilling to let bygones be bygones. In one final act of revenge, she wrote on her tomb, "May eternal damnation be upon those in Wallingport who without knowing me have maliciously vilified me. May the curse of God be upon them and theirs." Cool. Just curse the whole community then. Cheers, babe. Mary died in 1985 and it seems that her curse got lost in the post, as the people of Wallingport don't believe they've come across any misfortune whatsoever. The woman who actually moved into Mary's old home said to a local newspaper that the curse didn't bother her. She said, "I was frankly saddened for this lady who must have had so much turmoil in her life that she'd put this on her gravestone." Another member of the community wrote, "Nobody even takes it seriously, of course. It's a funny thing. We all laugh about it." Ooh, rough ride for old Mary. Finally coming into number 1, one tomb that should never have been disturbed, we have Tamerlane's Terror. Did it unleash Hitler? Maybe. Tamerlane founded the Timurid Empire in the 14th century, stretching across Central Asia and Persia. Tamerlane was also known as Timur and was buried in modern-day Uzbekistan, and his burial chamber was infiltrated by Soviets. Written on the wall, there was a very scary message indeed. "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble. Whomsoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." Now Tamerlane was indeed terrible. The Middle East and parts of India were ransacked with their populations massacred. So, did they heed this warning? Did they hell? Soviet anthropologists dug him up and what happened? Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military operation of all time. Now, a lot of people were killed, to just put that extremely lightly. When Stalin found out, he actually had Tamerlane reburied with full Islamic rites. Days later, the Soviets eventually and finally won a battle at the Battle of Stalingrad. Hitler did continue to plague the world for another 3 years though. Is this why?
Starting off this countdown, we have John Renie. In the churchyard of St. Mary's Priory Church in southeast Wales, there lies a very odd tombstone. It's the tombstone for John Renie. It features a series of letters in a grid-like pattern. Reading it from left to right just looks like gibberish. But this is actually a type of acrostic puzzle. Once you solve it, it spells out, "Here lies John Renie." Underneath it, it says the typical stuff like he died May 31st, 1832, he was 33 years old, blah 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 blah. But what a lot of people want to know is why John decided to have a coded message on his tomb. Well, one theory is that he was trying to fool or trap the devil to keep his soul safe. So this phrase can be read 46,000 different ways. This would confuse the devil and ensure that John got to the afterlife safely. But that's just a theory. Another theory is that John carved it himself just for fun, cause why not? You know, for a bit of entertainment in a dreary place.
Sad at number 9, we have this unidentified gravestone from Oskaloosa. This is is in the Oskaloosa Pleasant View Cemetery in the United States. This stone reads, "Unidentified baby girl found in Delaware River, May 1977. That is so horrendously sad. The baby was never identified, and neither her parents or killer, if they were separate people, have ever been found either. Coming into number 8, this next tombstone is pretty much just a fancy way of saying you're next. It reads, "To the person passing by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, you soon will be. Prepare yourself and pray for me." Wait. As I am now, you soon will be, but like, Oscar, you're dead. Oh, I see. This tombstone is pretty much just a direct threat telling you that, yeah, you're gonna die. Who even needs words when you could just let the whole horrifying stone itself do the talking? Am I right? Coming into number 7, we have this very, very awake but dead baby. It is always depressingly sad when a baby dies, but is this any way to immortalize them? The baby is sitting bolt upright in a crib while a lamb that may or may not have been some kind of animal sacrifice lays at the foot of the bed. Hi there, cold dead baby stone eyes. Yeah, why are you following me wherever I go? I don't like it. I couldn't be near it. It's too much. Coming into number 6, we have a victim of the beast. If you visit the Salt Lake City Cemetery, you might not want to leave any flowers on Lily E. Grace's grave for fear of the repercussions. It seems like Lily, who died in November 1958, aged 77, was a victim of the beast, or so her gravestone says. They even added a 666 at the end of the inscription just to make it clear which beast she fell foul of. Weirdly, her husband is also buried at the same cemetery, but far away from his wife's corpse. The website WeirdUS.com claims a woman who walked on the grave later had an accident with her car door, which is spooky. I wanted to add something scary but like a little bit more fun at number 5. We have this descriptive cause of death. Back in the day, it was traditional to write a cause of death on a person's tombstone. Poor old George Spencer Millett, who lost his life by essentially being kissed to death, has this for a gravestone. That's right, George was just 15 when he fell foul of an ink eraser stabbing him to death. His tombstone basically does all of the talking and will tell you all about it. He was trying to escape birthday kisses from fellow office workers when he fell on the eraser ink. Weird. Obviously it's sad, but a deep dark part of me just loves this description on his gravestone. Another pretty frank and way less hilarious tombstone at number 4, we have pressed to death. Again, part of the descriptive tombstone category, it seems that Giles Corey was pressed to death, which is a really, really horrible way to go and makes reading his stone, like, really uncomfortable and claustrophobic. It turns out that he was actually murdered as part of the Salem witch trials, which makes his death even spookier. This gravestone can be found at the Charter Street Cemetery in Salem, Massachusetts. We have a murder victim's gravestone at number 3. I think like a murder victim's gravestone is always disconcerting. William Wood was murdered in Derbyshire, England in 1823. Not only that, he was actually pretty brutally murdered. The almost 200-year-old gravestone marks the spot where he was found dead and frankly tells the world that indeed he was murdered. He was here murdered, apparently. This is very chilling, and if you want to find it for yourself, it's between Disley and Whaley Bridge, but personally I wouldn't want to walk down there alone at night. Coming into number 2, putting the head into headstone, we have, I guess, this head in a stone. Ooh. Nothing sends a scarier tombstone message than a physical head in a box. The head belongs to the patron saint of venereal disease. Yes, there is a patron saint of venereal disease, which actually sends an even scarier message. The saint was Saint Vitalis of Assisi, who died in 1370. His name is on the case, but to be honest, I'm much less concerned with what is on the case than I am with what is in it. Finally, at number 1, we have an Ouija board headstone. So you know Ouija boards are used for contacting the dead, right? Well, what better place to do this than in a graveyard where, I mean, it's literally filled with dead people. Inventor of this spirit game Elijah Bond insisted on an Ouija board headstone for his own grave, which is very terrifying and very creepy. I mean, imagine playing with that thing, like, absolutely no from me, get me far away from there.